Greetings, my fellow from Low Southern Thinkers. This is Hello3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from beautiful swampy Mango, South Florida. And today's date is Sunday, August 26, 2018. So let us begin. Greetings for you folks out there. Thank you for tuning in. And first and foremost, I'd like to send my condolences to the victims and the heirs that occurred in Jacksonville. A little shooting happened, and the person said the suspect committed suicide. It sounds like a typical pattern on these other past shootings. So I'm not going to jump any conclusions yet. I want to try to get all the information on it, and I'll give you my intake. Hopefully be on the next upcoming episode. So, because I like to be fair, accurate, honorable. But one thing I noticed, politicians out there now who are running for governor are jumping on that bandwagon to control every single one of us. Our freedom, they gotta give up our freedom for security. Don't fall for the propaganda matrix. So like I said, I want to examine everything as best I can, including the sheriffs and all that, and multiple articles. I'll try to get all that checked in, and we'll just take it from there. All right. So, of course, I can thank some people, for checking in my last episode that happened earlier this morning about John McCain. I'll be talking about him and interesting controversy that happened with the church. Historic bombshell that happened, and that was on Zero Hedge. And of course, first thing I'm going to start off is from geopolitics.co. It's a reference to Julian Assange. It says here, who really deserves First Amendment protection? That's what they have to say. If the dossier author, Christopher Steele, deserves protection under the First Amendment, but WikiLeaks' Julian Assange doesn't, then the concept of a free press is merely a distant memory. While it's all too easy to become frustrated and annoyed by what passes for news in the legacy media these days, this article in the Daily Mail aroused my particular ire earlier this week. Need the link for that so you can check it out. Interesting stuff there. And in this instance, no particular blame attaches to the newspaper, is simply reporting some unpalatable facts. The gist of it's that former British MI6 intelligence officer and current mercenary spy for hire Christopher Steele, author of the discredited Dirtier Dossier about Trump, has been accorded First Amendment rights in a court case in the U.S. You might wonder why this article caused me so much spluttering annoyance over my breakfast. Steele's treatment is in marked contrast to that accorded to WikiLeaks publisher and editor-in-chief Julian Assange, and the hypocrisy is breathtaking. Allow me to expound. Steele is a British intelligence officer of pretty much my vintage. According to what is available publicly, he worked for MI6, the British Overseas Intelligence Gathering Agency, for 22 years, serving in Russia in early 1990s and in Paris at the end of that decade. Around the time that MI5 whistleblower David Shaler was in prison in that city pending a failed extradition case to the UK, it is probable that Steele would have been monitoring us then. After being ousted as an MI6 officer in 1999 by his former colleague Richard Helmsley, he was pretty much desk-bound in London until he resigned in 2009 to set up, in an imitable way of so many former spooks, a private consultancy that can provide plausibly deniable services to corporations and perhaps their former employers. Steele established such a mercenary spy outfit, Orbis Business Intelligence, with another ex-colleague, Chris Burroughs, in 2009. Orbis made its name in exposing corruption at the heart of the FIFA in 2015, and was thereafter approached as an outsourced partner by Fusion GPS, the company initially hired to dig dirt on presidential candidate Trump in 2016 by one of his Republican rivals, and which then went on to dig up on behalf of the Hillary Clinton's DNC. Can we say this? Birds of a feather flock together, right? The result is what has become known as a dirty dossier, a grubby collection of prudent gossip with no real evidence or properly sourced information. As former MI6 intelligence officer, Steele should be hanging his head in shame at such a shoddy and embarrassingly half-baked report. On a slightly tangential note, there has been some speculation suppressed in the UK, at least via the D-Notice censorship system, that MI6 informant and Russian traitor Sergei Skripal, the victim of the alleged Novichok poisoning in the UK earlier this year, remained in contact with his alleged handler, Pablo Miller, who was also reported to work for Orbis Business Intelligence. If this were indeed the case, then it would be a logical assumption that Orbis, via Miller, might have used as Skripal as one of his reliable sources for the dossier. Here's an interesting tweet here. UK government sent out media suppression instructions, DMSA notice, aka D notice, for Skripal's MI6 handler living nearby, according to UK's Channel 4. Skripal's handler was historically reported to be Pablo Miller, more recently connected to Orbis and Christopher Steele. That's from WikiLeaks from April 29th, 2018. Despite all this, Steele has won a legal case in the U.S. where he had been sued by 3 Russian oligarchs who claimed that the dirty dossier transduced their reputations, and he won on the basis that the report was protected by the First Amendment rights under the Constitution of the United States, which has guaranteed U.S. citizens the right to freedom of expression, despite the fact Steele is British. It's interesting because even Larry Flint did that to Jerry Falwell, making a claim that he had sex with his mother, and he tried to sue him, and Larry Flint took to the Supreme Court, and he won. So they could use that case as well, Falwell versus Flint. So I'll just give you a little history lesson there, my friends. But Judge Anthony Epstein disagreed, writing his judgment that advocacy on issues of public interest has the capacity to inform public debate and thereby further the purpose of the First Amendment, regardless of the citizenship or residency of the speakers, because it's actually considered natural persons. So that's part of our supreme law of the land, you would say. This is a nub of the issue. Still, a former official UK intelligence officer and current mercenary spy for hire is granted legal protection by the American courts for digging up and subsequently leaking what appears to be controversial and defamatory information about the current U.S. president, as well as various Russians, all paid by Trump's political opponents, and still is given full protection of the legal system. On the other hand, we have an award-winning journalist and publisher, Assange, whose organization, WikiLeaks, has never been found to report anything factually incorrect in more than 10 years. Being told that if he were to be extradited from his current political asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy in London to face the full wrath of a vengeful American establishment, he is not entitled to claim First Amendment protection of the First Amendment because he is an Australian citizen, not an American. Like I have to say, he's a person, so he has those rights under U.S. law. Didn't say anything about citizens. They have to look at all that too. It has been an open secret for years that U.S. government has installed a secret grand jury in Virginia, home of the CIA, to investigate Assange and bring him to justice for publishing embarrassing U.S. government documents as well as evidence of war crimes. It sounds like Star Chamber, a pre-version of Star Chamber, right? There have been a call for U.S. politicians for the death sentence, life in prison without parole, and even assassination. The U.S. has been scrabbling around for years to try to find any charge it could potentially throw at him. Hell, it will probably make a new law just for him, so desperate as to it is to make an example of him. However, the fake Russiagate narrative gave the U.S. deep state an additional spur against all evidence of Assange's own statements. It alleges that Russia hacked the DNC and produced emails of Assange was a conduit to make them public. This is seen as a win-win for the U.S. establishment. Apparently, if erroneously proving that Russia hacked the U.S. presidential election and confirming that Assange runs a non-state hostile intelligence agency, according to former CIA Director Mike Pompeo. Except he does not. He is an editor running a high-tech publishing outfit that has caused embarrassment to governments and corporations around the world, not just America. He can be prosecuted for publishing information very much in the public interest, and all legacy media feeding off the WikiLeaks hydrant of information are equally vulnerable. This being the case, surely he of all people requires the protection of the First Amendment in the USA. Otherwise, we concept that free media can hold power to account is surely dead. This is Annie McCain, who is a former intelligence officer for MI5, the U.S. Security Service, who resigned in the late 1990s to blow the whistle on the spies, incompetence, and crimes with her ex-partner David Shaler. Wow, so sounds like this person has a lot of issues, Mr. Shaler, according to her. One thing for sure, my friends, the truth of the matter is they want to keep everyone hush hush and trying to shut up anything. That's why they want to do censor the internet. They have Facebook Facebook and Twitter doing these purges, and I still have this beef with yours.org for the time being because they abandoned my content. I'm trying to figure this out. So if anyone on yours.org better be paying attention. Don't put content that may be obscene in their eyes because everything I use is mainly public fair use, and I don't see anything I've done wrong. And I say that in good faith. What's going on in Assange is another example of war of the press. War on journalism. Regardless if you like Julian Assange or not. They're doing it to a lot of other folks out there. They even did this one to what's that woman's name? Oh shoot, she does Media Roots. Abby Martin. You know, she looks like she got censored as well. And some people say, oh yeah, it's okay, it's socialist. It doesn't matter. Okay, free speech and press is essential for everyone. I can entirely examine everything, make my own decisions. I don't need the state telling me how to think and wipe my rear end. Plain and simple. This is what's been going on with Julian Assange. If this happens, if they throw him in prison, it's just another nail in the coffin for freedom of the press and compromise our U.S. Bill of Rights culture. And the people that support this are treasonous. Plain and simple. They're the traitors. They're the John McCains. They make Benedict Arnold a profound patriot if they keep this up. Because that's how I look at it. So it's one of those areas. So the main objective is this: free speech is more important than your feelings. Doesn't matter anymore. A lot of people getting sick and tired of seeing all the propaganda shoved right down our throats and having the state trying to tell us how to think, how we think, and how to live. None of their damn business. As long as you don't harass anyone else. Look what's going on for martial law lives. They're going to try to tell us what kind of firearms we need. No, it's irrelevant. It's null and void. It's just like I said before, the reincarnated version for the children of the Khmer Rouge. Prove me wrong if you dare. So, regardless what you think, I support anyone to have the right to speak and choose their mind and put the free flow of information on there. But I always recommend have merit, but I am pro-free speech. Period. You may have to agree with this person, and I'll say it. Nothing wrong with that at all. Like on the last episode, when the fellow said about how great John McCain was, I disagree with him in a lot of those areas. However, I did take the initiative to look at some of his voting record, and there's some areas I agree with them on. But thereafter, when it came to the NAA and many others and going to wars, I condemn it with a passion. That's why I was never fond of the man and what he achieved. So, if you're gonna call me a hypocrite, let me know. Or call me a traitor, prove me wrong. Prove it. Prove it. That's all I have to say. So yes to freedom, no to tyranny, death to the New World Order. Plain and simple. All right, next one here, my friends, is came from. Oops, hold on here. I hit the wrong button. Next one here, my friends, actually came from Zero Hedge, but I got it from Blacklisted News. In historic bombshell, Vatican officials accuses Pope Francis of covering up sexual abuse. Calls for resignation. That's like, wow. Let's see what this has to say here. In an extraordinary 11-page written statement of which the NYT's Ross Delthat called a truly historic bombshell, a former papal nuncio or Vatican ambassador to the U.S. It does what may have called offer testimony concerning who in the hierarchy knew what and when about the crimes of Cardinal McCarrick. The testimony implicates a host of high-ranking churchmen and the people. And it says right here, Russ Deltat's tweet, and in the evenings, other news, this document is quite possibly a truly historic bombshell in the life of the Roman Catholic Church. Vanago says that he told Pope Francis in 2013 about allegations of sexual abuse against a prominent priest, and that Francis took no action. Now the former official Archbishop Carlo Maria Vangano, 77, called for Francis to step down. Vangano made allegations in a lengthy statement that concludes with the call for Francis' resignation. An extremely dramatic moment for the Universal Church. Interesting, for the Universal Church. Interesting, right? He must acknowledge his mistakes, and in keeping with the proclaimed principle of zero tolerance, Pope Francis must be the first to set a good example to cardinals and bishops to cover up McCarrick's abuses and resign along with all of them. Former Vatican official who served as an apostolic nuncio in Washington, D.C. from 2011 to 2016 said that in the late 2000s, Benedict had imposed on Cardinal McCarrick sanctions similar to those now imposed on him by Pope Francis, and that Vanago personally told Pope Francis about those sanctions in 2013. Hold on here. Archbishop Vanago has said in his written statement that Pope Francis continued to cover for McCarrick. One moment here. Okay, sorry about that. So Pope Francis continued to cover for McCarrick, and only now he take into account the sanctions that Pope Benedict has imposed on him, but also made McCarrick his trusted counselors. Vanago said that the former Archbishop of Washington advised the Pope to appoint a number of bishops in the United States, including Cardinals Cupic of Chicago and Joseph Tobin of Newark. CBS News spoke a telephone to Vanago, who confirmed he wrote the statement and said he was speaking out now to combat the grave situation in the church, to protect the church, and also to stop future abuse. He told CBS News producer Anna Matranga that he had no agenda and was stating facts. Vanago, who retired in 2016 at age of 75, described an exchange with Francis on June 23, 2013, shortly after he became Pope, about the Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, the former Archbishop of Washington, D.C., who resigned last month over claims he sexually abused seminary students and an altar boy. Vanago writes that he told Francis about the allegations. Holy Father, I don't know if you know Cardinal McCarrick, but if you ask the congregation for bishops, there is a dossier that's thick about him. He corrupted generations of seminarians and priests, and Pope Benedict ordered him to withdraw to a life of prayer and penance. Vanago writes the Pope did not respond to the statement, and McCarrick continued in his role as a public figure in the church. So Pope Francis addressed the sexual abuse scandal on Saturday in comments made in Dublin. There's an interesting thing about Dublin too, about 800 children's bodies were buried under there in one of those facilities. And I will continue on here. The failure of ecclesiastical authorities, bishops, religious supporters, priests, and others to inadequately address these repugnant crimes has rightly given the rise to outrage and remain a source of pain and shame for the Catholic community, he said. I myself share these sentiments. Pope Francis accepted McCarrick's resignation on July 28th. McCarrick has maintained his innocence, but this month a Pennsylvania grand jury issued a report that said more than 300 priests abused more than 1,000 children and likely 1,000 more over 7 decades. Father Boniface Ramsey of New York told CBS News this month that he repeatedly complained about McCarrick and heard about this disturbing behavior as early as 1986. Nearly 100 of the accused clergy are from Pittsburgh diocese alone, where Donald Urey, the current Cardinal of Washington, D.C., was the bishop for 18 years. In a statement, Vanago wrote that Urey also knew about McCormick. His recent statements that he knew nothing about it are absolutely laughable. The Cardinal lies shamelessly, Vanago wrote. In an interview with CBS News correspondent Nikki Bastidi before the grand jury report, Worry said that he was quick to deal with allegations and that he was not aware of any rumors about McCarrick. If there were allegations, we dealt with them immediately, he said. All the time that McCarrick was here, and certainly all the time that I'd been here, there was never any news. If I could tell you, no one ever came to me and said this person did this to me. No one. And remember, we're just talking about Pittsburgh. I was in Pittsburgh. We weren't following the rumors of different parts of the country. Worry also suggested to CBS that McCarrick has paid the price for his actions. He has resigned. His resignation has been accepted. He has been told to stay in seclusion. That's pretty substantial penalty to be paying. Venego's statement called on the church to take action to restore the beauty of holiness in the face of the bride of Christ, so tremendously disfigured by many so animal crimes. If we truly want to free the church from the fetid swamp into which she has fallen, we must have courage to tear down the culture of secrecy and publicly confess the truths that we have kept secret, kept hidden. As the saga continues, this letter is either an extraordinary vicious slander or an act of revelation that should be undoing of just about every figure mentioned in its pages. It has an apocalyptic feel either way. This is either an extraordinary or vicious slander, an act of revelation that should be undoing, or just of every figure mentioned in its pages. It has an apocalyptic feel either way. And it's interesting because it is 11 pages long. There's a link for that. You can read it yourself. And I can say this in good faith. It is very disturbing and interesting what he calls Maria Venago wrote. Especially when he wrote right under here. I have always believed and hoped that the hierarchy of the church could find within itself the spiritual resources and strength to tell the whole truth, to amend and to renew itself. That is why, even though I have repeatedly been asked to do so, I've always avoided making statements to the media, even when it would have might been right to do so, in order to defend myself against calumnies published about me, even by high-ranking prelates of the Roman Curia. So, very interesting right here. And I'll just finish this one paragraph. It goes, but now that the corruption has reached the very top of the church hierarchy, my conscience dictates that I reveal those truths regarding the heartbreaking case of the Archbishop Empress of Washington, D.C., Theo McCarrick, which I came to know in the course of the duties entrusted to me by St. John Paul II as a delegated pontifical representation from 1998 to 2009 and by Pope Benedict as Apostle Nuncio to the United States of America from October 19th, 2011 until the end of May 2016. And you can read the rest of this yourself. There's a link on there. And what I'm observing here, it's possibly opening up Pandora's box. And I remember stuff from Nostradamus talking about some of these churches may be crumbling, including the fall of the Roman Catholic Church. And it's a real shame because you got some beautiful people who are rank and file, are honorable folks. But when you see stuff like this, it really gets them scrawny. And it doesn't mean you should not be anti-Christian or anything like that. You have to look at things a lot broader. You don't have to throw your Bibles away or etc. It's just one of those areas you always got to be aware of the status, like behind the crooked cross, and based on some of the past practices and controversies with the Vatican. I'm real convinced they are part of the one world order, based on my research. And I know Pope Francis is under that same wing of tyranny. But yeah, definitely read this statement, testimony yourself by Vagino, and you make your own judgment on this. But always observe responsibly. All right, so do one more here. And this one came from covertgeopolitics.co again. And this one's entitled Perennial Warmonger Regime Change Operative John McCain dies at 81. Alright, as it reads, ISIS godfather John McCain succumbed to his brain cancer a few hours ago after he refused any more of these toxic chemical treatments which made his brain more toxic. In his last breath, he accused Russia of having assaulted the foundation of democracy, aka regime change, efforts everywhere. According to a statement from his office, McCain died at 4:28 p.m. local time. He has suffered from a malignant brain tumor called a glioblastoma, for which it has been treated periodically with radiation and chemotherapy since its discovery in 2017. Yeah, chemotherapy really helps out, right? That's from the New York Times. John McCain was one of those G.I. Joes who burned Vietnam in an effort to spread democracy in Southeast Asia. McCain came from family of heroes. John Sidney McCain III was born on August 29, 1936 on a U.S. naval base in Panama, which at the time was under the control of the United States. And joining the Navy, McCain followed a family tradition. Both his father and grandfather were admirals, though he proved a less than a model pupil, fishing fifth from the bottom in a class of 895. McCain went on to serve as a combat pilot in the Vietnam War, where he was captured and detained at one point in the notorious Hoa Lua prison, nicknamed the Hanoi Hilton, as a prisoner of war. McCain endured unspeakable torture and deprivation until his release in 1973. After the release, he was awarded the Silver Star, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, and Distinguished Flying Cross. McCain leaves behind a battery of failed or tattered states, e.g. Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Ukraine. Deep through his involvement in the Islamic State's terror. Yep, you hear someone playing R&B. Through his deep involvement in the Islamic terrorist state and plundered operations against those countries. And of course, here, this is what he has to say. Important visit with brave fighters and Syrians who are risking their lives for freedom and need our help. Oh, yay. McCain has been very loyal to the exceptionalist, hegemonic ambitions of the Bush, Cheney, Clinton, Rockefeller faction within the deep state. And this is what Joe Biden has to say, according to ABC News. John McCain's life is proof that some truths are timeless. Character, courage, integrity, honor. A life lived embodying those truths cast a long, long shadow. John McCain will cast a long shadow. His impact on America hasn't ended, not even close. That was from one CFR stooge talking about another. And of course, is what CBS News has to say about, ABC News has to say about this. On the statement below here, from Kennebuck, Maine, some lines are so vivid, it is difficult to imagine them ended. Some voices are so vibrant, it's hard to think of them stilled. John McCain was a man of deep conviction and a patriot of the highest order. He was a public servant in the finest traditions of our country. And to me, he was a friend whom I deeply miss. Laura and I send our heartfelt sympathies to Cindy and the entire McCain family, and our thanks for the life of John McCain. So we should all stand up and give the Caesar salute and sing God Bless the Patriot, because it's done for our own good. And John McCain voted on it, my friends. So I will continue on here. Of course, DNC dirt files on John McCain and 9,681 other McCain documents from the archives. You go, folks, to read this yourselves. May the Bushes and the Clintons be the next ones to bite the dust soon. I think it'll be my last thing. I'll be talking about McCain, because I did one already, the whole entire segment, episode from yesterday. However, this had to be brought out as well, just to put their 2 cents in, because they have the right to be heard. Because now some of the flags are half-staffed because of this man, pro New World Order himself, John McCain. So if you are a New World Order asset, you will be respected and get the ticker tape parade. If you are a maverick, they will crucify you and have you bitten, going to the pit burning. John McCain made a lot of enemies. He gave the United States of America, his contributions gave the United States of America a big black eye. He was pro NDAA in 2012. He supported other things like campaign finance laws, which violates free speech. But like I said, there's other things I may agree with him on his voting, but it doesn't mean I love the person. I was very critical of him on his actions, and that's it. I don't want to repeat myself. People better start doing their homework before jumping on some pretentious bandwagon and listen to some mainstream news propaganda. Because based on his actions, I did not have contempt for him as an elected servant. Period. And I know, too, with the Tokyo Rosa recordings, very controversial. I'm not going to dispute it. If you're going to call this man a hero and a patriot, how come he wasn't consistent on his oath of office to protect and defend the U.S. Constitution? Has nothing to do with his political background or political or partisan background, anything like that. It's principle, which this man has a big problem with. But one thing I said before, and I'll repeat it one more time, I never wish this man any ill. That's how I see things. Hopefully people out there will do the same. And that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share through social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, when we say something that's interesting, you may want to check out. Whatever you do, please address the correspondence with decorum. And you hit me on these multiple sites, which you can find on my Spreaker page. In addition, you can email me at lookyourluck3@gmail.com, or to encrypted ones, mainly, especially with the Proton Mail account, lookyourluck3@protonmail.com. All right, my friends, once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.